Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. I'm not sure what's going to develop, but with all this talent around me, I'm sure we're going to be fine. I want to read some explanation about what we're doing here, even though you heard some of it. The reason I'm going to read it is because I need to hear it, and it may clarify a little bit what our purpose is. Richmond is an area rich with innovations and startup entrepreneurs. If you've ever tried to start your own business, you know what a hard prospect that is. Funding the endeavor is always a major obstacle. So many people approach banks and lenders every day looking for money for their businesses, and it can be quite difficult to come away successful. The paperwork and approvals can cause even the most determined entrepreneur to back away from a good project. Angel Investors provides another route for startups to fund their great ideas and enrich their project with the knowledge and guidance that can make the difference between failure and success. Our panel of angel investors have a broad knowledge, awareness, and experience to assess new formidable ventures. They will look at this stuff, and they have the best mindset to positively influence entrepreneurial talent. If I were writing a script, I wouldn't write entrepreneurial talent. It's hard to say. They're here to share their pearls of wisdom, I might say that. First, though, we have some questions for them, and then after that, we will take any comments or questions that you might have in the audience. Letitia, since you came the farthest, I think, what is the current climate for raising money?
I think it's pretty good. I'm sure if you're an entrepreneur or an innovator and you're looking for money, you're not really convinced of that fact. But on the East Coast, we have a lot of money chasing too few deals. So it's just as difficult for my angel group to find really good deals in which my investors are willing to invest as it is for entrepreneurs and innovators to find the funding that they need. And I think later on we get into what makes a good match between those two, but I think at this point it's very important to understand that there's lots of money out there. The only caveat I have to that is if what happens in the election could change the incentives on capital gains for investors. And that's something that we'll have to see what works out in the new year and the fiscal cliff and things like that. But other than the mismatch, it's a good time to find money because everybody's chasing yield.
I've heard that several times. There's a lot of money out there. The trick is getting your hands on it. Pat, how frequently would you say you're contacted by someone asking you to invest in their idea or business?
For me, it happens every day, sometimes multiple times a day. It really depends, but generally at least once a day. So there's a lot of people in search.
How do they approach you? They just come up to you on the street or give you a call, or what do they do?
Well,
they know you? Are these people you know?
I would say they hunt me down through people I know. And then the people I know twist my arm to talk to them. Others just approach me by getting my email, shoot me ideas. A lot of times it really is through people I know who ask to give them the opportunity for me to review their business plan.
And you have the background to give them good advice, perhaps send them away sometimes.
I don't know about all of that. Well, I certainly will take a look at it and decide if it's something I want to invest in. Right. I'll push them in a direction.
Whatever you tell them is of value to them, so they'll know whether it's a credible idea.
And there might be other people that I know that are looking for that type of investment.
All right. I want to go back to Letitia for this. Don't go away. What are the pros and cons of taking money versus self-funding or bootstrapping, as it's known?
I think whenever you can validate your product because you're bootstrapping it and you're determining your own revenue stream, you have a lot more control, you have a lot more opportunity to set your own terms. With that said, it is a little bit important to understand who you're getting your money from, what their intentions are, what kind of match you're making. with the other person and how long you'll be sleeping with that person until your deal comes to fruition and that investor gets their money back. So there are a lot of cons for different reasons. There are a lot of pros to getting outside money, which includes not only financial capital, but mentor capital as well. But there are a lot of pitfalls, and there's probably not enough time this evening to have that conversation, but over a couple of shots of tequila, the three of us could give you some horror stories.
So when you accept someone, you're setting up a new relationship.
Yes, it's definitely not a one-night stand.
That's right.
It's
Okay.
definitely a long-term marriage, and many end in ugly divorce.
All right. Will, what makes an investment proposal an attractive investment opportunity?
You know, entrepreneurs always have passion, or they wouldn't be entrepreneurs, and that's what a lot of what you look for. But I think realism is another thing that, or you know, it's idealism versus realism. So I think, you know, as an investor, you know you're not going to get rich quick. You know, you're investing as an angel and usually an early stage startup. So you want, though, to hear from the idealistic, passionate entrepreneur that there's a path to cash flow. You know, be realistic about when revenue will come in and when we'll get to profitability, when we'll get to cash flow positive. You have projections and things you put together, but you know, seeing a hint of realism in the passion is a critical thing to a startup that we're talking about.
How does a startup know when it's ready for angel funding? I'll just throw this out to any one of you three instead of.
Well, we were discussing this upstairs, and the only answer I could think about was when your parents cut you off.
That sounds funny, but I think that's
but it's true. It really, I'm not trying to be flip. It's true. Friends, family, and fools is really the first money in, and your credit card, and your second and third mortgage maybe, or when your spouse, if you're married, cuts you off, then, and you still think it's a great idea, and you still have that passion, and you've somehow validated with real people that you're not smoking something when it comes to cash flow projections, that you're being realistic. I think that's the time that you have a second validation. If your parents trust you and gave you $10,000 or $50,000, I think as an angel investor in Angel Group, we would think that says a lot, because goodness knows they know you better than we're ever going to know you. And if they still like you, that's a good condition. That's not a bad thing at all. And if you can't then bring in your own revenues, what we would look for is validation that an investor is interested in you. And so that first investor can be very important for validation. If it's just dumb money, which is in the eye of the next investor from your first investor, you know, that's kind of critical. And you know that if you go to angel groups and say, well, this VC really likes me and really wants to invest in me, so you better hurry up, right? So if that was true and it was really happening, we would consider that an important validation, and we would go validate that. But on the most important part.
So when somebody comes to you, it's a good idea not to come alone. Bring support?
It all depends.
Validation?
On who they're you mean come with investments? Come with opportunities for the future.
People to vouch for you,
Right.
or because they're coming as a stranger.
We'll do that at due diligence, right? Angels typically will invest in an A+ person and a B+ idea before we'll ever do the opposite.
Right. Once you've decided to look for angel funding, how do you find one? Anybody?
I think that's probably the hardest part. We talk about the fact that there's a lot of money out here and on the sidelines, but you know, outside of the 5 or 6 people that you hear about all the time, at least in the Richmond community, the U-Crops or RVA or the Ivor Massey, kind of the people that you always hear about. You can call those guys and try to get them to listen to your idea. But there's a bunch of people that nobody's heard about much that are on the sidelines looking for ways to invest. And I'd like to learn more about her angel network, because I think that sounds like a good way to bring a group of angels together and create a structure for people to pitch their ideas. I think that's what's missing. You start by calling somebody that you know is an investor, and then they usually refer you. They listen to the idea and they refer you to others. So it's kind of it's an informal network. But I think somebody from the outside or somebody who's just starting a company has no idea how to start that process.
The angelcapitalassociation.org is a really good place to go. So we were talking upstairs when I panel or speak, the difference between an individual angel who can do it very quickly and write a check because he really likes it or she really likes it, could just sit down eye to eye and say, you know, this is great, but I really am going to need you to do this if I give you this money. And angel groups takes a little longer, but what you get is 35 people who are going to see it. You're going to get potentially a single taxpayer ID number for $500,000 investment. Due diligence is going to take a little longer. But if you're looking for an angel group, accredited angel groups are members of a Kauffman Foundation organization called angelcapitalassociation.org. It tells you how to find angels. There's New Dominion Angels here in Richmond. If they do a deal and they come to me and they say, look, this is a $1 million tranche, we can only cover $250, we like it, we did the due diligence, we'll share that with you. They already have subscription documents. Would you guys take a look at it? I'm sure, I don't have to do any of that work. Bring them down to my group. So we'll end up, then you'll go up to New Vantage Angels or Dark Angels in Northern Virginia, the Virginia Active Angel Network. We have investments with the Blue Tree Angel Group in Pittsburgh. We've sent people out there that we're doing deals with to finish. So this is the really great place to go to submit online to them, and nobody, you know, sometimes the question of NDA and non-disclosure comes up and things like that. We really, as angel groups, don't sign them because we can't control people, but we don't have the kind of time to take your idea and make it into something without you. Maybe a VC could, because they seem to have a lot of time these days, but I would say that try the Angel Capital Association first, and if you're looking for individual angels, particularly in Richmond, the original angel groups were the attorney, the accountant, the guy with the money goes to the attorney and says, if you do the legal, I'll give you, you know, we'll go in this deal together, and the accountant will do it for equity, and the lawyer will do it for equity. Go to your legal counsel. This is important. We work with McGuire Woods at the Virginia Active Angel Network. They represent high net worth individuals looking for yield for their investments. They know people. They can make introductions. Your financial accountant who's going to help you determine what the valuation is before you get an investment. These are the places to find the buried bodies that keep you from having to hunt him down through 7 people or LinkedIn in mail. And those would be the suggestions on how you can get to money when it seems almost impossible sometimes to find it.
Well, you also are correct about that, because some of the better investments do come from my attorneys or my accountants. They see it firsthand.
Did you want to say who your attorney is today? Or just kidding.
I think one of them's here.
A rush to him is, don't put your hand
Well,
up.
I think I have about every large attorney group, so nobody really can sue me. Conflict of interest.
Let me write that down. But it's true, right?
No, it is
That's
true. Very true.
You trust your attorney with your investments, and so that connection can be very positive. So if you see a law firm having an event that has anything to do with entrepreneurship, go.
It's also a little bit of a follower, and I guess that's the way it is everywhere, but it's definitely a follower kind of approach. So there, and especially when you're talking about technology or more riskier startups, some of the sort of good old boy cronyism Richmond Angel group are scared to be the first one in. So if one gets in, then others will follow quickly behind without much due diligence. Really, they kind of, if he looked at it and he thinks it's great, then count me in. So
Same concept with the angel groups, exactly. Yeah. And so this is probably the big question of the night, is how do you find the money? Because you wouldn't be here if you already had the money.
I didn't know you had a list of my questions.
We were told to memorize them before we got here, so we worked on that upstairs.
Well, I didn't do that. This is your last question for a while, Letitia. What should an entrepreneur look for in an angel investor?
Back to somebody you can work with. So angel investors can tell when you're standing in front of me, when I make individual angel investments, either through my group or individually, when I'm talking to somebody, they really need to be teachable, because I have the money. I think I know everything. Every angel investor thinks they know everything because they're about to risk $50,000 or $500,000, so we think we're really smart. And if you're not teachable because you know everything, then we're not going to be a good match. And just because you don't seem teachable to me does not mean you don't seem teachable to another alternative. And you'll hear people say, gee, how'd you raise the $400 million over 8 years of your project with all these different series? And you'd say, oh, I talked to 400 people, and it was the 401 person who made it happen. So you're going to meet a lot of people you don't like. If you take money from somebody that you don't fit with, it might seem really cool at the moment, but about 6 to 9 months later, you're living the American nightmare, in my opinion. It's very painful. And that's all I have to say for a while.
For Will, gritty details, grand overview, or both. What do you want to hear? How much does sustainability of the new programs play a role in your decision to invest in those programs?
Well, I think the sort of details versus high level, I think you've got a structure. And I met with some people the other day that had a really interesting, I'd say, industrial technology product, and super high tech, super cutting edge. But when they described the product to me, they talked about 8 different entities that were going to be involved in exclusive partnerships and patents, and it just got confused. So I think the gritty details sometimes can, especially, you got to think a lot of these angel investors, especially in Richmond, are old guys. They don't want to hear this, or women, and they don't want. And they don't want to. Shots with the young women, by the way. And I'm getting old too, so so they don't want to be confused with all these bits and bytes kind of description. But you've got to tell enough of the product details or the idea so that they can understand why it's different, why it's important, why it's maybe a niche. But you've got to give them that overview first, and it's sort of like the test of, can you tell it to an 8 or 10-year-old. In fact, I tried to do that with the idea that I heard the other day. I think he got it, but it was around LED light bulbs, and I had to show him one. So it's you've got to be able to tell the story to a 10, 12, 13-year-old and have them understand it, and then you can use that. Then you need to get into the details as well, though, because you're going to have, especially when you get into due diligence or another group of investors, you're going to have people that want to dig into the nth level of detail, so you got to be prepared to go to that level as well. And I think you also got to be prepared and should be honest, obviously. But when they ask you some detail that you don't know about, and I saw this happen too, where they ask you about a detail that you haven't worked out, don't gloss over it. Say, I hear you, that's great, we haven't worked that out yet, let me get back to you. And if you go back and investigate it and come back with an answer, the point, you just risen the point scale in a huge way, just like Letitia was saying around listening, and so it's just you've got to know your audience.
All right, Pat, what value do you place on a business plan as part of the pitch, and would you make an investment decision without a business plan?
Well, I think we've all heard the saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, something along those lines. I think it's very important that a person have a business plan. I think the notion that you have to make it very fancy, that you have to make it thick and full of all kinds of stuff, I don't think that's important. I think it's really the quality of the business plan or the quantity of pages. So when I'm looking at a business plan, I'm looking for how concisely they put it together. Do they answer all the questions an investor would like? Basically, what is it they do? Why are they doing it? What their team looks like? Why are they different? And how are they going to take it to market? How much money do they need? Have they thought through what they need and when break-even point is and such like that? When it goes back to the size of the business plan, that actually brings up a funny story, because and I'm not going to suggest
we're due for a funny story.
I'm not going to suggest anybody here even do this if you're going into an investor, like an angel investor. But years back, a business partner and I, we had to come up with a business plan for a new way of freight factoring, and so we needed we were business partners, so we're not going out looking for money, but we believe in business plans, so let's make a plan and put it in action. I was a bachelor at the time. So he comes over, stays over the weekend at my house, and let's work on the business plan. So I'm looking around, I can't find paper anywhere. And he looks around and says, well, we got paper right here, paper towels. So we took the paper towels and we did our business plan on the paper towels. And to this day, I've got one hanging up in my office showing what a business plan on a paper towel can look like. But, you know, I wouldn't suggest it for people going out looking for money, but really it was about the quality. We sold that for millions later, and we just got down and we laid out a plan. So there was us, already successful business people, putting down a plan, and also being creative. Money doesn't make money in a sense, it's creative what's up here in your mind. So instead of thinking we have no paper, there's some paper towels.
So do we have $50 says that a woman went back and typed it all up from the paper towels?
Not at all.
Oh, good.
Because there are two men involved.
That's
There
an
were two men.
entrepreneur.
We were satisfied with the paper towels.
Oh, they never typed it up. They just copied it.
But yes, I do believe in business plans, and I think it's very important to have them. And it's mostly the quality of the quantity of pages.
Well, would you rather have a mediocre team and a great idea, or a great team and a mediocre idea? Or neither?
Yeah. No, I think that it's the team that's the most important thing, and I think team is a good word, because I've invested in some companies that is one guy, one person, and realize that there's no way that'll ever work. Now, obviously, in the early stages, you can say, well, you know, we can start with one guy with an idea. Maybe he's developing mobile apps, but you've got to have more than one person to start any business, and they don't have to be 100% involved. But you've got to have somebody to bounce your ideas off of as you're working through, you know, the beginning stages of starting a company. But definitely the person goes a long way. And in fact, there was a startup here recently that a bunch of people invested in, and I think everybody thought the idea was a little bit far-fetched, but the person had so much drive and so much experience that it was they followed the person, and they're hoping the idea works out. So.
Pat, do you look for a potential investment to already have a customer base?
Well, it certainly is probably a little bit easier, but not necessarily if you already have a customer base. If you have a customer base and it's growing week by week, month by month, something that shows that it's trending upward, investors would much more prefer that than the total startup. We have just an idea, just a concept. So from my standpoint, that's proof of concept to a certain degree. But just because you have a customer base, is it even growing? Is it shrinking? And the reasons why. So ultimately, it's not necessary. If you've got a great idea, a great plan, a great team, investors are going to be interested as well.
This one also for you, Pat. What role do you want to play in the organization in which you're investing? Do you want to be part of the strategic planning, or do you prefer to invest your money and simply receive updates?
Neither, no.
Well,
that all depends on the company. If you are investing, let's say I'm investing in a company that already has a customer base. They have a great management team. They got a great board. They're executing their plan very well. Well, then they're basically probably asking for an investment, and they have a certain use of funds that I'm agreeing that's going to help them expand. Well, that's actually kind of an ideal situation where I know I don't have to get too involved with that company on a strategic level. That's very passive. If a guy has a great idea and a great plan, and I think that we can, but not necessarily experience, and I want to invest in that concept, then I already know as an angel investor that, again, that I'm going to have to put a lot of my time in, because I'm going to have to strategically guide. So I am making those decisions. So if it's like I said, the other, of course, I don't have much. I'm not going to expect that much time involved. If it's a total startup and I think it's a viable product or service, then I may invest in it. But I already know at that point I'm going to have to commit a lot more of my time to that. So that can be a negative, depending on how much time I think I have and how much I like the idea. But that does bring me to an interesting thing, that it was some article I just wrote recently. No matter whether the investor is passive or an active investor, one of the things that's really important, and I think it's extremely important, is investor relations and keeping in touch with the investors. So even if they're passive, these guys need to know, because they're stakeholders in the company. They need to know how well the company is doing, whether it's good or if it's bad. Certainly, the more truthful you are about it and communicating, it shows. Even if it's bad, that you're being honest with yourself, you realize your pitfalls. But use those investors, and by communicating, even if they are passive, you may be running into some scenarios where a passive investor might go, wait a second, I know how we can help solve this problem.
Right. Yeah, that's
key.
Yeah, because I think the last point you made is a big one too, is tell people what's happening to enough level of detail that they might, because you may be a passive investor and don't have the time to be involved in the business, but you see one little thing in the update, in the quarterly update, and you go, wow, I know the CEO of that company, I can probably call him and put in a good word and help close the business or whatever it might be. So yeah, it's definitely keep them updated.
Well, should an angel investor consider a company that is B Corp or a for-benefit company? And what would your criteria for this type of business be?
Yeah, I know a little bit about those organizations. I guess the B Corporation. I know a guy that started a consulting company doing that. It's been very successful. But I don't understand how the investor part of that works. So I know there are organizations that are not really nonprofits. They actually make money, but they give all the money to a charity or an organization. So I think as an investor in that type of company, I don't think you're doing it for the return. You're doing it more for the cause. And so,
can you repeat what a B Corporation is? Because I've apparently not invested in any.
Yeah, it's I don't have all the details, but you can see it on the website. And there's a few other types that are performing, but it's apparently it's a company that's not necessarily a nonprofit. So I think it still pays some taxes, but they give a large portion of the profits to a community organization. So,
like a reverse Pike, or I mean, is it?
I don't know how it exactly works. Yeah, but I can put you in touch with somebody that does. Maybe Charles can answer that.
I'd like those profits to come back to me, so I'm okay.
Yeah.
They're actually taxed just like corporations.
Okay.
Corporations are held to the profitability standards, so if they're not profitable, make decisions that aren't profitable, they can be losers. It's a stated benefit. So as a benefit corporation, you have a stated community benefit, and you're held accountable to that benefit. Okay. That's the only difference. It's really just
So if you agreed to always give 20% of your money to Richmond United and you're in business for that purpose, you're going to be okay if you don't give the money back to your shareholders because you have a stated upfront benefit. Therefore, your shareholders can't sue you because you didn't pursue the most profitable avenue as it relates to board decisions and management. Okay.
Yeah, I think
Did you get all that?
It probably just limits
Otherwise.
the upside profitability because there's a portion that's going, but it's usually for a good cause. So I think it would be just a factor in the decision about investing in that type of organization.
And I'm sure there's a lawyer or two in the audience if nobody else got that.
Pat, let's go back to you. What approaches turn you off when someone comes to you? What do you run from?
Asking for money?
Yeah, well, the way they drape it, I suppose, is what I'm saying.
Well, certainly I can come up with a couple. One is when they approach me and they're not very concise about what the story is and what their business plan is, what their model is, and they're all over the place, talking about the industry, talking about why, talking about their brother or sister, how this all came about. For one, I'm not sure what they're looking for, so sometimes I'm not sure if they've ever even thought of their plan or they've really thought through their idea. I'm not sure if they just can't communicate. Sometimes I don't even know if I think they're trying to let me help them come up with it. So that's one of those confusing moments. Another one would be probably disrespect of my time. Certainly on the phone and in person, there'll be times when I say, okay, I'll listen to you, give me the pitch, give me the quick pitch, and I only have 5 minutes, but I can't get away. You know, okay, I've got to go now, but one more thing, and then one more thing, and one more thing, and it keeps going. What I've found is those kind of people, in the future, every interaction's like that, so I can never quite get away. And then that kind of makes me go, I really just don't even want to listen to that. And then the other thing, of course, working, doing business in Canada, US, Europe, sometimes we get calls at the weirdest hours, very, very late, very, very early, and then if I answer, I'm thinking it's something urgent. It turns out to be, hey, I really got to talk about this idea. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Did you not even check the time? Hey, this would be interesting. This is something that has happened to me more recently, I think, since the crash. And it's almost a salesman fear of loss pitch. So even if they give me a great pitch, or whatever the type of pitch it is, it always ends with, Pat, thing is, everybody's really, really interested. And actually on this round, we're about ready to close it out, but we really wanted you on this. Because we would really like to have you with your ideas and strategy. But you really need to make a decision. It's got to be by next week. Well, immediately I'm thinking, okay, I start my watch. Let's see when they call me back, because it's never closed next week. Next month keeps going. But that's a big turnoff for me. Is that enough?
Yeah, it's very interesting. There's a lot
actually many. But
I was thinking of a boy asking a
We
girl
have a
for
lot of
date,
great
she doesn't want to go out
stories,
with
right?
it.
I mean, that can go on and on and on.
We all have some really
And
interesting
he
stories.
chases her across campus, and she says, no, no, no. Okay, Will, do you ever fear a big monster company in the industry or the business you're investing in will copy your new venture? And I know this happens.
Yeah, I guess it's going to depend on the business, but I think there's plenty of room in the industry, in most industries, for the small players if they've got a different spin on how they do things, or they just have good customer service. I mean, we used to laugh when we got into the government business a couple years ago, and now we've got sequestration and all these things coming up, and we said, well, the government spends however many $1 trillion a year, and we're only a $50 million company, so I think there'll be plenty for us. So I think you can have a big monster company, and there's plenty of room for smaller startups to do things a little bit differently, maybe within the same industry. So.
And if I could add to that, local can be good, because when you think about the Groupon, we've probably all see the same trends at the same time. In the spring of 2008, all of a sudden coming through in the Mid-Atlantic was all these ways to sell your house online, and really sophisticated, completed software systems. They used the MLS, they'd gotten into several states, they're going to roll this thing out nationwide. And we happen to see 3 or 4 come through on our website at the same time, plus we're members with 325 other angel groups through the same gust.com system, so you can find other angel groups. And we could see these trends before the crash came in September. I remember saying to my husband, something funky going on here. All these people spent 6 months, and that would have put them into 2007, and somehow they think we need help to cut out the real estate middleman. Why in different states would they all come to our website to submit? And we've seen other patterns like that where you see 2 or 3 of the same thing at the same time. But if you think about the long tail concept, at the end of the day, if Groupon survives, and that's a second shot at tequila story, it'll survive because it'll take all the long tail companies, the smaller companies, local, and it'll roll them all up. So roll up is an M&A strategy from the Blackstone Group all the way back to KKR. They've done it in daycares, little 2 and 3 mom and pop daycares, pet things all over the country, and then the big guy comes in and buys them all up and changes the name, and everybody else did the work. So there's always room in the local market if you can do it a little bit better, and if you have a connection to your customer. Just a internet ad-based website freemium model, that's probably not going to happen. But if you actually did the legwork, I think that there's a lot of room for the big guy to gobble you up, and there's hope in that thought.
The next question is yours as well, Letitia. Do angels charge entrepreneurs to allow them to present a pitch? What are their specific criteria for investing in a company? I guess that's 2 questions. But you've looked at the question, so you can...
So we don't charge at the Virginia Active Angel Network because we think you're already poor, right? And we don't want you to have to come up with $250 after your parents said no when you need your next round. How's that going over there, Rob? Where you need your next round. If he doesn't like the answer, it just gets softer. So we don't charge, but I don't have staff. I don't pay for office space. I did this 8 years ago so I could invest, and it's grown and it works, and we make a few investments a year. But I do understand that other groups who need to hire a director or have a paid staff person may need to charge $25, may need to charge maybe $100 because like I got the submission because the person didn't have to pay for a paranormal franchise across the country. Forget that my husband said, didn't she already know I was going to say no, right? But it didn't cost her anything to post it, right? So you can be worried that you're going to get slammed with 1,000 ideas, only which 10, and you have to go through these and you have to have staff. So I can see a little bit of a barrier to entry, although we don't charge that. When you get to the Keiretsu forum, where they're going to charge you $3,000 to $7,000 to present, we're having a discussion within the industry because we sort of think that's, the difference between fine wine and, Michelob Light, that's not really real angel investing. But some of those Keiretsu forums, if you're willing to bet the farm, there's 1,000 people in the room that you're getting that attention and you may get a big hit. So I'm a little bit, so those are the pros and cons of whether somebody charges. But if it's not an accredited angel group, the Angel Capital Association, and Keiretsu Forum is, I recommend being very careful and knowing a lot about the person before you put $200 or $500 into that. The second part of the question was about,
what are their specific criteria for investing in a company? I don't thoroughly understand what that means, so why don't we go on?
Without answering the specific criteria?
We would like, understand it, go ahead.
We would like to invest in your great idea, and then we would like to get rich off of your work. So that's the only criteria that you have to prove to us. If you can prove that to us, I'm in.
All right, that leads us to the next question. Pat, you're a strong entrepreneur in your own right. Why do you invest in other people's ideas and projects?
I can answer that question.
Go ahead.
The market stinks.
What?
You can't make any money anywhere else.
Chasing the yellow. Right?
Go ahead.
No, well, I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I'm still an active entrepreneur. So I'm still creating businesses, and I love business ideas. I like go-getters, and I like great thinkers, and I like all business concepts, and I just can't do it all. So, at some point I decided, why not invest in other people's ideas, and I like working with other entrepreneurs, and a lot of times just working with other people, I get ideas I can take back to some of the ones I'm in charge of that I'm creating at that time. So I'm just passionate about business, and I love business, and that's all I've done all my life is create businesses, and that's why I do it. And it really does come down to I can't do it all, and if I see someone, God, I'd like to do that. So how do I do it? Well, I help somebody else out. Let them do the work, and hopefully I get a little bit rich.
Does Deal Junkie come to mind?
I think that.
Yeah, okay.
Deal Junkie, yeah.
But remember, just as a last thought, this is ADD money. I just meant to say that earlier, right? You only have a few minutes, right, to get our attention because we're moving on. So that's probably the most important part for all of us
and
here,
I only
right?
charge $1,000. If you got something you want to pitch me, $1,000.
That would be
I'd come down
certified
for
check,
free.
cash up front, or the little 4 thing he can run his credit card.
Is important.
So you buy ideas.
Well, I just got one. I got an idea. I'm going to start charging.
There you
plans.
go.
That's where I'm going to make all my money.
I have a question. What are these green things?
They're to eat.
Those were the last event's cookies. They have a little fuzz.
They're not getting much action. No one likes fuzzy cookies. Okay.
No disrespect to the. I'm just kidding. This is a great restaurant.
I want to pet one.
You may take one home.
That's all right. I don't want it in the car with me.
Pet rock.
We'd like to open the floor now to any questions you may have of any of the panelists or all of them. So,
I had a question about one of the things you might look at being another sort of validation, crowdfunding, and pros and cons of doing something like Kickstarter to do a raise, and the con obviously would be if that doesn't go, and the pro would be if it does, then you might not need angels. But how hard would you look at Kickstarter, for instance, if it didn't raise the full amount?
Okay, I'm going to start this because I'm speaking next week through CIT at the University of Virginia on Monday the 24th, on crowdfunding. And because I'm part of the legislative committee, it has some very unique pieces to it. First off, we're still in the middle of the SEC rules when it comes to job funding. So right now, whereas it looks like a panacea, the Jobs Act, specifically as it deals with this issue, says that you may advertise to people, but you still cannot accept money from somebody who's not what the federal government deems an accredited investor. There may be some rules that are coming out. The Angel Capital Association Legislative Committee, we're working on going before Congress, which we've done several times in the last year, giving them ideas of why you want to make this positive so investors will still want to invest. The dirty little secret is, if you go to, first off, Kickstarter is for the creative class, right? It's not yet selling equity to people. If you give money to if your idea hits on Kickstarter, you are agreeing, I don't know why this isn't working, my little pen thing broke. Okay, just this far away?
More. There you go.
Right here, so you can hear me?
If you hold it there, he'll adjust.
All right, he'll adjust it. I don't have to scream. So a couple of things. On the Kickstarter, that's for the creative classes, right? If you're a scientist, you go to I Am Scientist and try to raise money. But right now, you can't sell equity. So you're going to agree to sell your photographs in exchange when you get this new photographic idea up and running. When you do that, you have some accountants in the office, in the area, I'm sure you may have a taxable event where somebody's giving you a gift and you are giving them something in return. So you've actually sold something. Now you got $20,000 and that's taxable. So you have to be a little bit careful. I, as an angel investor, the third piece to that puzzle is when Kickstarter is legally permitted to sell equity in your company, and some of these other crowdfunding sites are, if you have 52 investors around the country in 18 states and you're an LLC, your accounting costs are so high, I have no intention of investing afterwards. If you gave them rights in any way that I would be subject to if I came along after you got 100,000 and now you need 250,000, I'm probably not interested, because your legal and your accounting costs and your legal costs for the documents for these people to sign are so impressively expensive that you're eating up all the money I'm going to give you just to pay off the accountancy, because I have some that are in a couple of states. It's really expensive. And now you're beholden to all these people that you have to get back to. So there are some issues that are going to have to be solved on this front.
And even before crowdfunding, I've seen companies take on too many investors, and then somebody's got 1,000 shares, and it's worth 0.5% of the company. They're going to be just as loud as somebody who's got 50% of the company in some cases. So just you want to have a smaller set of investors, as few people as possible, because you're having to deal with them on a constant basis. And the
tax ID numbers. We look at investors as tax ID numbers. So angel groups, most of them like mine, if 8 people liked your presentation and our minimum is 25,000, and so 8 of us put in 25,000 or more, that's into a single purpose LLC to which it has a taxpayer ID number. I'm the managing partner. I have 14 of these, each with their own bank account. I'm going to write you a check. You're only going to have to talk to me. It's my job to email them the communications. You only have one K1 for me, things like that. But it works the same way in a C Corp. You still have all these people calling you every day. You have 1,000 people. So if you know in your timeline to maturity, to revenue, to a liquidity event, that you're going to need VC money at the $6 to $12 million level, those of us in the interim at the higher risk, or in between your crowdfunding group, are going to say, that VC is never going to touch you guys with 97 people all over the country. So we don't want to put money in because they're never going to invest in you, and we do believe for your particular product or medical device you are going to need that level. So there is some issue with professional, not professionalized, but those of us who think a lot of our own opinion about what to invest in. There's a lot of concern for whether we'd really touch that if you needed it. And if it was really bitchin' and really cool, you would have already met up with him and he would have been one of these 2 investors. I go, well, I'll do that deal, right? But what will it say? We don't know yet, but I think there's a lot of legal costs, pitfalls, impressions, things like that. But on the other hand, I'm all for crowdfunding. I really think that we need that in this country. I think it was a great part of the Jobs Act. I fought for that. I went to Congress. I walked those halls with all the rest of the legislative committee, and I think that we really need crowdfunding, and I don't think it affects my angel investing at all. I don't think it crowds us out, and I think it helps everybody, and we really, really need to get money to great ideas and people who are willing to take the risk.
Another question?
How important is it to
have a go public strategy for a company? Would be one part of the question.
I'd be tough to invest in something that said that was their only exit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's so. Look at Facebook. I think it's so hard now to. It's it used to be kind of that's the way you get the big payoff. Now it's kind of like that's the way you get a payoff. But that's also the way you get that money to do acquisitions or over the top kind of stuff. I think that's I wouldn't say it's a great strategy. I would look for cash flow businesses or look to sell it to to a private equity firm or to a strategic.
And haven't many public companies gone private because of all the legislation, all the record keeping?
Yeah.
So if you came to us and said, I've got it, they're going to love this, Petco's going to buy it, right? That would be one thing. That's a strategic partner. That's a roll-up concept. You would then say, well, Petco's bought 6 other companies in the last 12 years, or Merck has bought 4 other companies, and these are their multiples, and you would tell us why you believe they will want this product. But if you came to us or came to me and said, this is going to go IPO, I would just say, okay, I'm out. I would Shark Tank you. Too big a risk.
So help me understand this. As an IPO, basically that's just paperwork, right? And then an idea that the public's going to invest in. So it's expensive paperwork with an idea that the public is going to invest in.
Wouldn't you say most businesses, the idea of going public is fairly remote? That the exit strategy you're talking about, I would say that if you're like doing a business plan, you're thinking about where would we fit, you would identify public companies who you think that you'd be bought from. I just don't think there's that many people that go public as far as from startups.
Would you guys agree that nowadays we look at it as the only people that have to go public are the ones not making any money off their product?
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, think about it. If you're not making any money and you're screwed, let's go IPO. Yeah. Right? If you're making a lot of money, you're like, screw them. I own the company, I own the stock, I rule my own world, everybody loves my product, I'm on all the television shows, why would you bother? So people go to IPO because they need the money. In the old days, you go to the IPO because you had a great train company.
Is that what Zuckerberg did?
No, he wanted to just cash out and take
No, he just wanted to take an IPO so he could do it before he got married and had to give her half. Right?
There you go.
So that was a legal strategy, I think. So, and he took everybody with him. But that's just my opinion. I'm a cynic. But really, when you go public, it's because
I don't understand why you would invest in something in a company that doesn't make anything.
Right. And look at Groupon and look at Facebook and everybody said, oh, I got a piece of Facebook. You're like, yeah, and that's wallpaper now.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We knew at the last valuations that those people coming in at the end were
And
suckers.
while we're on the subject, how does Twitter make any money?
Well, now
I don't pay them.
It hasn't. I asked this question to my engineering students, right? So I asked them to go look at Twitter and join it. They think that's old people stuff. Twitter's for old people, they say. These are engineering students at the University of Virginia. It just kills me. So I know you use Twitter. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. But they now have.
A lot of my followers are in high school because I know they are. They're talking about going to the prom.
Yeah. So we're talking about business and passing on
their mother made
things.
them clean their rooms, so I know.
But apparently they actually have a revenue model now, and I think part of it has to do with selling politicians millions of followers, and they've opened up their. It's just this week, so I can't really tell you, but they.
Still not a good
But you're
answer
right.
to the
They
question.
don't have these companies don't have revenue models. So we would assume if you came to us and said, the only way for this to make money, for you to get your investment money back, for us to monetize the investment, or you will be released, is to go IPO. We would assume you were saying, I won't be making any money. I'll be majorly in debt, and I'm relying on the one brass ring, which is an IPO market in 3 to 5 years, and I would have to Shark Tank you because that would scare me.
So the difference maybe then is building a product and selling a product, or building an audience like Twitter and Facebook and the like do. So they're building an audience that they can then understand that audience and market into.
Right.
And so they're,
So they have hope.
I understand that. I just don't see evidence that they're doing it.
None of us does.
Well, I mean, Facebook is making lots of money, so they are very profitable and doing well. That they should have never gone public.
Right.
So if they would have stayed private, Zuckerberg be the king, and now he's got a board. He's got Wall Street. He's just melting down. But he did have a good speech the other day. So,
I think that was a mea culpa.
Yeah, no. But then there are other organizations that aren't making any money that go public, and so the good thing about Facebook is I think the value is probably about where it should be now, whatever it is, 18, 13, 14
about half
dollars a share.
yeah.
So they just went out too high, too big.
But they're going to lose a lot of their personnel because people got stock options that
Yeah.
we already know, I think from Steve Jobs, that you can't reprice those in the middle of a deal, and a lot of people took really low salaries in exchange for the equity, and the equity ended up being a lot more than what it came out to be. So yes, it makes money, but they did have to go public because they had to monetize really huge valuations in the last year where they took a lot of money, and the valuation was so high that it couldn't meet expectations. So it was bad calculus.
Another question from, yes, go ahead.
Letitia, you said one of your criteria was to get rich, and that makes sense. Can you put some numbers on that for the angel community, threshold, return on investment, period, so on?
So as I tell my engineering students, there is no internal rate of return. We're not doing discounted cash flows to future streams of revenue. There is no revenue. So what we're looking for is pre-money valuations. Right now, East Coast only. The West Coast is all driving themselves off a cliff over there, fighting over one deal. Like kids who fight over one toy. You don't need any more in the house because there's only one that you need for children because they all want the same one. So we're looking for pre-money valuation of about $1 million to $3.5 million right now for deals. If you're up in the $10, $15 million range, I got other stuff I can invest in. It's opportunity cost of investment. When we're looking for returns, we used to say 3 to 4 years. We're looking for anywhere from a 10x to a 30x, which is just 10 times my money to 30 times my money. Interestingly enough, unlike those of us with an MBA where we were taught you should get an average rate of return by dividing that by the number of the years, angels are very optimistic people. So we just go, damn, I got 30 times my money back. Forget it was 42 years later, right? That's not the point. You know, it's over what can you tell the wife and the husband you did on a deal. Has nothing to do with the years you held it. So it is important to tell you that we would look for you to convince us that in 3 to 5 years, and now are out 7 in a lot of our deals, that we would be looking for about a 10x. And you would then need to convince us of that because you certainly have nothing but your ebullience and your idea and your persuasion skills and a business plan with footnotes.
And I think it's being realistic about the valuation too. And I think people struggle with what is an idea and 3 smart people and maybe 1 inkling of a customer. What is that worth? You know, you forecast revenues so many years in advance, and it's hard to value it. But be realistic about it. Like that $1 million to no company at an early stage is worth more than $1 million.
Well, so you bring up an interesting question. So if you know that your widget needs $500,000, and you have 3 people in the company, and those 3 people say, hey, you know, Pat and Will, we really need to own 66% of this company. We're only willing to sell 33%, but you can't take $250,000, right? To get this to prototype, to get something done, you need $500,000, and you know that. So your pre-money on that deal, made up off the top of your head, is $1 million, because then you go get the $500,000. So this is the lowest you could do to satisfy the criteria that the 3 stooges have to have 66%. Maybe that's because you know you're going to need $6 million down the road someday at from a VC, and you're going to get less and less, so you got to start with a bigger chunk. It's not one of those things that this is the only money you'll ever need. You know you're going to need more. We know you're going to need more. You would value it at $1 million. You would raise the $500,000. The post money is $1.5 million. So you sold 33% of your company. So sometimes the valuation is dependent on how greedy you are on the ownership, or not greedy, but you know how much money you need, you know what the future looks like, that you're going to need more money, and that 66 between 3 guys is going to start, and eventually it's going to be down to 60, then it's going to be 55 in each subsequent round, because you're going to have to give it up, because the other 33% might have a clause that says you can't dilute. their shares. Maybe everybody goes in pari passu, look that up. I can't remember how to spell it. Everybody being equal. So sometimes the valuation isn't just being realistic, it's being realistic about the money you need and what the future looks like. And your accountants and advisors who help early and seed stage companies and your lawyers can be very helpful in coming up with these. When people come to us and they have no idea what the valuation is, I think either this is a huge opportunity to figure it out for them, which would certainly quite happily benefit me, or I think, you know what, they're just not ready yet. They haven't taken the time to get some small professional help without a $5,000, you know, $350 an hour attorney. They just are getting that initial, hey, you know, here are some of the pitfalls, but you need to, I think, I like to see it when they have a valuation. I can turn around and laugh, right, and we can start negotiating, but at least I know you have some understanding of how you arrived at that, and that's important to me. Is that important to you?
Very much. I mean, for my deals, a lot of times at our idea startup, they usually want big salaries. That way they can take care of themselves. They want lots of money, and they want to own most of it.
Right. Welcome to our world.
That's what I see.
Yep.
Something else from the audience, please. Right here.
What do you think about seed funds, regional seed funds, and would you all consider doing the first round from the seed fund?
I got to tell you, I'm not really sure what that question, I'm not an entrepreneur, so how would I feel about a seed fund in relation to an entrepreneur going to one and getting money? Well, hell, if someone wants to take the risk before my money and it's a fund by law, I'm in. There's some credibility there. They wrote you a check, they did due diligence, they're sort of proof of investment, investable concept, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
I don't know much about seed funds.
Yeah,
Just pooled money, OPM, other people's money.
Yeah, I think it probably helps to validate, you know, because it's again that follower thing. Somebody else has looked at this with a fine-tooth comb and is willing to invest, and then it's going to be the reputation of that seed fund, I guess. But somebody else has thought it worthy of an investment, so you're going to take another look at it. So give us some value.
Is that kind of what you're asking? Yeah. Did you have any particular one you want to tell us about, or everybody in the room?
No.
Because everybody here is looking for money.
Absolutely. In the process of starting a local seed fund.
Right. Great. And we definitely hope you succeed.
I do have another question. Yes, go ahead.
Shannon McAllister, Dogtown Dance Theater. I'm an artist, and whenever you hear about an artist, you usually think starving artists, and it's not because I can't get a job or I don't have the money, I'm not getting paid. It's just because I'm taking everything that I make and going right back into my product because I have this drive to be better and better and better. So an investment in an artist is a great economical choice because you're going to be constantly getting improvement. The problem I have, or the question I have, is if I'm doing all this legwork, and it has to be legwork because I don't have an advertisement budget, so I can't just, put something out there and pay for it. So I have to do the legwork. If I'm doing all this legwork, and I have an investor, and Letitia, you said that the drive is to get that big gobbler, the person that's just going to gobble you up. Well, for an artist, I think that might not be the best thing for me because it's sort of what's going on in Richmond. We had the drive for tourism, and with that drive for tourism, they're starting to bring in artists from outside of Richmond, which isn't going to benefit me at all. So how do I separate those investors who have that drive for bigger and bigger and bigger versus the investors that actually have an interest in me and my organization?
Well, if you're asking me directly, I would tell you that you're talking more social public good entrepreneurship. I represent somebody who wants a return on their investment because I can't get it at my savings and loan. Don't take this seriously. I'm representing a concept here. So I'm an investor and I have more money than God, and the bank's only insured up to $250,000, so I've got it in all these different places. I don't want to keep it in a bank. I'm getting screwed on my taxes. I'm now one of the 0.25%. I have the ability to do good, right? So you would look at a Kickstarter that's for the creative classes where these people don't want and don't expect something back. They want to help you. It's sort of like prosper.com, right? Where people want to make some money back to lend somebody money who's credible and has good credit rating because they want to, put a garage on their house. And it's a little bit less, but it's better than they're going to get at the bank. So I think a Kickstarter, a regional Kickstarter, would be great. If you're looking for equity investors, you would go to Angel List, which I'm a member of. It's not a crowdfunding thing, but we all see each other and who's interested in which deals around the country, and we follow them. And it's not like a dating site where you get winks or anything. They know who we are. We know who they are. We can follow a typical deal. So I think you should try Kickstarter and say, this is what I'm doing. You sound very passionate, and it's always fun to go out and get the money, so you can look at all the other people that they're bringing people in and say, wow, all the people that you're hoping to get tourism are coming over to my place because I did it myself. And I think you get attention that way, you get free marketing that way, and it's all about the creative classes. And I think with your passion and the way you're describing it, that would be the way to go. Make no mistake about it, I need a return on my investment because I'm paying for 2 kids at the University of Virginia. So, right? I'm not getting a return on them. So, and my understanding from my mother is you never do. So,
I'd like to ask you a question about your business model. I know a lot of artists, but I don't know anybody who invests in any of them.
Kickstarter.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
How are you going to be a successful artist if people invest in you? What's going to make you a successful artist?
Well, with Dogtown, our purpose is to provide an avenue for artists to be able to explore, to grow, to experiment without losing their shirt. We have very affordable spaces where they used to be able to practice in warehouses and areas that were set up for them, and as the economy gets worse, these places are closing down. Our purpose is to allow these artists to grow. And without that ability and that environment to grow,
so it gives them a place to come and work and study and so forth.
They can grow and then benefit everybody around them.
Okay, I missed that part.
So,
thank you.
So artists are your customers then?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
But they don't have any money.
Not right now.
You need
So we
customers
also
that have money, I think.
Right, and we have to look at the commercial side of it as well. So that then becomes, we would almost need more than a Kickstarter, because we really would need a long-term investor. We don't want just something, because a lot of our competition, a lot of theaters are out there. Even just small little projects are doing Kickstarter. We're not just a small little project, we're something that's going to be invested in the community and making a difference in the Manchester community. So we are looking for something more long-term than just a Kickstarter. I mean, it's nice to get instant money.
So you're looking for just a sugar daddy investor who just keeps giving you money, or
no, not at all.
When do they get their money back? I'm missing the.
That's what I meant.
You're terming this an investor, but an investor denotes that they want a psychic return. But if you say long-term investor, do you mean you need a long-term loan from a investor, because you're not going to be able to flip a franchise of artists over a certain amount of time? You're basically talking about a bank type loan where you're going to give them 4 or 5 or 6% back. To say a long-term investor, you're just talking about somebody just keeps writing you checks all the time for psychic value, which all of us tried when we got married, and look how that turned out, right? So really what you're looking for is a small business investment corporation, an SBIC, that can make those kind of investments that are sort of SBA oriented, but they're community oriented, and I believe there's a couple people who've set them back up since you can do equity. I recommend if you can do equity or freemium from Kickstarter, why would you do that rather than sign a loan? It's sort of like being a nonprofit organization. I mean, the MS Foundation has to make a business of raising money every year, and guess what? So do you.
Right.
So go do that and make sure you get back to your investor or investors, but try to get equity or the free money in order to save some of those payments so that you can put more money back into your business sooner, and make sure when you talk to those artists that you own some equity percentage for that low rent of every painting they sell, of every macrame they weave, for every project that they do. Give your master organization a little bit of percentage ownership in them, and if one of them ends up to be the next Paloma Picasso, there's your long-term investment, right? It's sort of a creative class incubator model.
Right. I think you misunderstood me. I wasn't putting down Kickstarter, but...
Oh, no, I didn't think you were,
okay.
and you can.
Right.
I don't know them. They're not friends of mine. I'm good with that. I'm just saying we were using those to try and get a definition of what you meant by investor, and that long-term investor denotes, you know,
no, I'm just
a
looking
way
at
older husband.
More of down the road, because I don't know how many opportunities I'll get to have to come to this kind of event. So I'm kind of learning now so I can have it later down the road. But it's not anything where we expect to just take and not give back. In fact, a lot of artists will give more and not really expect so much back, and that's where we run into problems.
They're like doctors. They're not always the best investment in their own product. Right. I get that. So, but let's talk afterwards if we can give you some specific answers. I know these two guys are dying to get into this conversation, so we might have some tips for you
Jumping
there.
up and down.
All right, thank you so much.
You gotta leave right away.
Another question.
Does the panel feel that Richmond has the network density of active capital to build a strong ecosystem?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it definitely does. The problem is, and a lot of people are trying to do it, but the problem is, I think, organizing those people together in some way that's not, that doesn't seem like a meat market of what is the path that some people have taken. Not meat market, but, you know, we're running through, you know, there needs to be a level of qualification of the companies looking for investment to get access to this group, but we need the group to step forward. So it's kind of I think Richmond's a weird community like that, so I think it's there, but it's going to be hard to corral them together in a way that they can be helpful.
It's events like these. Absolutely, Richmond has the ecosystem. I came down here and brought the Virginia Active Angel Network down here for 2 or 3 years. People want to help. I think people believe it's an old boy network. Well, you know what? Even the old boys get tired of the old boys. And the old boys really do like the young girls. So if you're a woman in Richmond, I think you have, pardon the pun, a leg up in investment. I wore the pink shoes just to make the point. So I think that it's important to remember, don't buy into this crap, even though he told it to me earlier, about the old boy network. If you can give people a rate of return, they don't care what color, what size, whether you wear glasses or you are naked. They're chasing yield. You know, the biggest problem is going to be what happens to this market, Charlottesville market, the state of Virginia, when you can get 12% on your bonds because QE 14 is over, right? So the point here is, if you have a great idea and a potential return on investment and you have the passion, either because you are just totally unemployed, and so you got the passion, we don't really care. It's a great idea, you're a passionate person, and this is your moment to find people who need, we're either deal junkies, I'm not saying anybody here, and we want to get more than 1.75% on our money in a bank that's sitting there. We're almost paying the banks to hold our money so that they can tell us that they can't lend it to somebody else. So this is a great time, this is a great location, and you don't have to join the Glen Allen Country Club to find the money, okay? You just have to look to other entrepreneurs because they're the ones that are willing to take the risk. And those of us who made a lot of money risking a lot of cash in real estate deals for years, and that usually includes entrepreneurs, we're risk takers with money. If we lose $100,000 or $50,000 or $5,000, we're like, I can just make more tomorrow with a different idea. We believe we can make our money, so we're willing to take that risk. If you're talking to inherited money, that guy's not going to lend you the money. If he loses grandpa's $100,000 out of the $1 million he got, he's never had to make it himself.
he's not going to make it back. He has financial advisors. If you find one of those guys, I'm not saying that the entrepreneur didn't inherit some money too, or leave it to his kids, but you want the entrepreneurial spirit when you're talking to somebody, because inherited money is not, if that's all they've done, they're not always comfortable believing that if they lose it in an investment, they can just make it back tomorrow. We think if we lose money on a deal, we can make it back tomorrow. Would you agree? You think?
I think you've nailed everything.
Okay.
Done.
All right.
That's the whole thing.
Everything has been nailed. Could there be any more questions? Yes, sir. Two over here. Go ahead. At the bar.
I actually have a follow-up to that, which I can tweet if that would work a little better. I'll just holler. There may be the capital ecosystem, but is there an ecosystem of mentorship that can handle a tech boom, some sort of innovation boom in this part of the world?
I mean, I also think there is. I think they're scattered though, and that's and Alex and I've talked about this some. That's the challenge, is trying to get those people together in some way that can provide them a connection, because they know each other. Most of them do, but they don't know you all. So it's trying to create that connection, and I think that that's what's missing. And a few different people have tried it, but I don't think it's ever really caught on here. And Richmond's kind of an apathetic community, but it's getting better. So that's what's missing, and I think I would love for somebody, and I'd be happy to help get it going, but somebody to get that started to make that connection, because that's where people that
804. No.
Yeah, and the people that have the money can't find each other very easily. So I think that's one of the big challenges.
So let me give you some hope real quick on that. So I spoke at the annual meeting of the National Association of Seed Venture Funds, and one of the gentlemen in the audience, and it was in Baltimore a couple years ago, so it was near the government, so it had this, how can we all get government money kind of feel, and I was like, ugh. But anyway, so I spoke from a college and an investor perspective, and one of the things that was very interesting, and yeah, he got a little upset, was he talked about, I think it was in Virginia Beach, they built this incubator, and the problem was, and he's like, so we've really done this for our community, we always had these things going, and he asked me a question, and I got a little sidetracked, and I said, so do you have any angel money where you're at? And he said, well, no, but we mentor people, and we really help them, and I looked right at him, and I said, you realize you just built a bridge to nowhere? So if you had to pick whether you want money that attracts that question, and his phone number in a minute that I'll tell you, so you can call him because he just said he'd help, is you'd rather have the wealth and the entrepreneurship and the people that you have in Richmond, and the rest will follow, right? It doesn't feel like it, I know. But rather than all these great incubators in Danville or in the middle of Podunk somewhere, and there's no people to invest, and there's nobody to show up. You're just setting people up for an education in how to move away. So you have a lot of hope, right? They got to move away but they got to move up to Richmond to find you from Danville, right? So I think you have the better part of the equation first, and then he'll fill in the rest.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but
we had another question over here at the end of the bar.
Yeah, I have a question. For startups that are still in the early stage of launching, so self-funded, parent-funded, family-funded,
full-funded
stage, at some point in time, it just gets to be too much work for a group of people to do, and you need people to help you. What's your advice to small startups that are still not at that phase where they need an angel investor or more funding, but they still need a lot of people or a group to help? Aside from begging.
Interns.
Aside from what?
Begging. Interns.
Interns, I mean, that's creative enough.
Yeah.
Work for equity. If you can sucker
work for food.
Have you guys ever been in that situation?
Yes. It's sort of like having kids and you can't afford the nanny, right? Now what are you going to do, right? You got a lot to do. And you can't afford the nanny, so you're going to find little neighborhood 14-year-olds to hang with you with the small children on the floor. So here's what I do, because I don't have a staff, except I have somebody who has a child, and I hire her when I get all backed up. But when I do due diligence, I go to the law school, and I ask a couple of the guys at the pro bono thing if they want to do something. Those guys are working for free. 6 years ago, they called and said, look, we'll put $3,000 to a Darden MBA if you'll put $3,000 and hire them. And they meant Siemens in the financial industry or IBM or Goldman Sachs, right? And that's how all of them got interns over the summer. And it's important to work in the industry in which you're getting a degree. If you're getting an engineering degree, you want summer internships in engineering. I got to tell you, there are more business people out there that will work for food. Remember, they already go to VCU or they already go to the University of Richmond. They already have the apartment off campus. That's a one-year contract. Their parents are already paying for their food, and they just want a really hot reference that they worked for the Virginia Active Angel Network, or they worked for your really cool company, LLC, for the summer doing research, right? So if you're willing to put out there at those locations that you need 3 months, you don't want them full time because you're really busy, but you want them every morning from 8 to 12, they can still take a summer course from 12 to 3, or you can work it out. And they're already paying for the apartment, and their parents are paying for the food, and you're gonna say what a great job they did helping your company do research on its next new market. And if you're willing to trade that for them, there are hundreds of thousands of these people who've already been out in the real workforce, who are at a business school or a law school. They usually don't jump straight from I know nothing to I can get a business degree, but unless you're online. And so I think that's where you go. You have to be creative about getting this kind of help. And I like that you're saying, I can't afford it, I'm not ready to, no, I can't say that in case it's on television, but let's just say it's the opposite of bend over backwards so that I can get some money and get people to help me. I think that's a very creative thought that you're not quite there yet, but you need help. These people would die to have that on their resume right now. May not be that way in 3 years when the world writes itself.
Okay, next question.
Just to give you a quick background, I work for two organizations. One's a for-profit counseling service and one's a nonprofit. And one of the things that we want to do is we work with homeless veterans. So we want to do a social entrepreneurship, one that will be profitable. But we were also looking at, and we kind of touched on it a little bit, and this might be more of a question for a lawyer with a background in this, because they started talking about the B Corporation, is that can investors have a relationship with nonprofits that you're aware of in any way? Because we're not sure, we haven't done the research to figure out whether or not we want to be nonprofit for the social entrepreneurship, or if we want to make it a B Corporation or some other type of legal structure.
But it sounds like your question too is, do investors invest in nonprofits? Yeah.
Is that possible?
I think it is, but I think that, again, I think you've said it a few times, but investors are typical investors investing to make a return on their money, and I think, and it's the social entrepreneurship. The nonprofit, would be more donating, money to the nonprofit to get it going for the cause.
I was wondering, without knowing the legal backgrounds, if there's any way in the tax code for nonprofits that they can agree to a certain return on investment, so that they're still nonprofit status, but they're actually providing a set return on investment, and then maybe
right.
break away.
So maybe it's not 30 times or 10 times, but it's 8%.
Only if they take it as a loan.
You hear that?
Okay.
So you get interest income is what you're saying. You can.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys heard that, but I'm assuming that makes him a lawyer. You're an accountant. So the nonprofit would have to take it as a loan, and the investor or debtor would be able to get a coupon rate on that standard loan, which I think is kind of how cities can give away $100,000 as debt, maybe convertible under certain terms to organizations. But probably for all of you asking this nonprofit question, the social entrepreneurship, we're really not trying to make ourselves out to be capitalist pigs. But if you ask the three of us if any of us would ever invest in a nonprofit for a coupon rate based on how we got here and what we look at, I'm not going to do that. That's just not something I'm going to be interested in doing.
One last question for you guys. Any final words of wisdom, closing comments, humorous events that you'd like to share with the audience?
That you can tell. All I can tell you guys is do not give up. First off, you're only doing this because one, fundamentally you can't give up in your heart, and somebody out there in your life hates you because you can't. And the other thought is this is the time to do it. because you have an excuse. If you lost your job or you're really hoping to get out of that job, nothing is going to change unless you change it. And I love going to the Angel Capital Association conferences because they are the happiest frickin' place on earth. Because we invest in deals, we lose our ass, we do it again. Those are really happy people. Okay, you go to the ICSC regional meeting yesterday, not everybody's so happy in the real estate business. So angels are very open and they're very excited about what you're doing. It's very important that you not give up. It's the 401st person who's going to validate your idea. And yeah, you wish it was the first, but it wouldn't mean as much. And they're going to help you get where you're going. And that's what angel investing is all about.
I don't even like following you.
You know what? I'm
You
so
say
sorry.
it all, but it's all good stuff. I mean, you really summed up the whole thing in the last deal, and it's about thinking about what's in it for the investor. I had a conversation the other day with a business owner about that as well. Think about it from the investor's point of view rather than yours. It's too easy to go, my idea is worth, it's so valuable, I don't want to let it go, but I need your money. And so always think about what you can provide, to the investor that's going to be attractive, that they're going to want to invest in it, besides forgetting about the idea and everything else you're doing. The only other thing, it's not necessarily funny, but I know in life a lot of mistakes are made by young entrepreneurs, startups and all that, thinking, if I just had a little more money, everything's going to be better. If I just had a little more money, everything's going to be all right. If I had some more money, I could hire the right person. If I hire this, that's a bunch of baloney. I can give you countless of examples where I've had a startup without the money and created lots of value by either JVs, partnerships, anything like that, or even sweat equity, paying low salaries for stock. One time with the Get Loaded, most people in Richmond know about the Get Loaded that I founded. When I was a startup, I couldn't afford to get in all the major magazines. They're like $50,000 a month. So I created basically a profit-sharing deal for every customer they brought. They could run it in their remnant ad space. So whenever they had space available, they'd run my ad, and I'd give them a piece of an ongoing commission forever. I said, I'll pay you a piece of that ongoing residual forever. Basically. Well, it was a monthly subscription fee. But what I'm getting at is instead of thinking I don't have the money to go to do all this national advertising, I thought of a way to work with them, knowing they already had remnant ad space issues. Why not, when you have that extra space, run my ad and build a long-term residual? That's just an example of we're thinking, okay, I don't have the money, what can I do about it? So always think about it as far as you don't always need the money, but you definitely need what's up here to make it work. And of course, sometimes you do need the money.
I guess the only thing I would add is sort of echoing the other comment is make sure you can describe your business or your product in a clear and concise way that a layman could understand it, because that's going to be critical. That's your critical first impression when you're talking to any investor or any partner that you may do a joint venture with, or anybody about your business. So make sure you can tell it in a concise way, and then be ready to go deep on the details when you get to that stage.
Thank you. So just a few closing remarks before we kick off the action hour. First of all, I'd like for you guys to join me in a round of applause, thanking our panelists. Second of all, I wanted to thank all of you. Richmond Unite could not be here doing what we do without all of you, so thank you for coming. And finally, one last thank you to Alice, Sarah, and the volunteers. I mean, Richmond Unite's doing something incredible for our city, for our youth, and in general, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
This is a wonderful event. Anybody who is looking into going into entrepreneurship, doing a startup, anything on that level, I encourage you to come. It's very educational.
My name is Hugo and I'm with PayThanks.com. We're a new company based out of Richmond, Virginia. We're invited to this event, which proved to be invaluable to us. It was excellent. The setup was great. The speakers were amazing. We learned a great deal, and we're very, very, very grateful to Richmond Unite for putting this together. I believe that this event is going to help a lot of young entrepreneurs out there, and speaking from my heart. This is going to help us a great deal.
I learned a lot tonight from some great angel investors. I'm really excited to use what I learned in the future.
This crowd was ecstatic. It was almost part comedy, part education. Learned a lot of extremely valuable tips on how to approach angel investors, how to approach, even the friends and family that you ask to invest. But they kept it light, they kept it real, they kept us interested. It was a 2-hour event that felt like it was 15 minutes. Highly recommended if we have it again, that everybody come out and come see it.
Hey, I'm Rob Kirchner as an entrepreneur with Paid Thanks. Really enjoyed the event and learning from Pat, Letitia, and Will about what it's really like to be an investor, what they're looking for, and what we can do to better pitch them. Also really enjoyed and want to thank Richmond Unite and all the great nonprofit work they're doing here in Richmond to help invigorate and further this nonprofit community. And I can't wait to be a part of that as an individual and member of Richmond and a entrepreneur with Paid Thanks.
I want to thank Richmond Unite for having us out tonight. Couldn't ask for a better panel. Definitely learned a lot about angel investment, and it was great to be here. Thank you.
Had a great time here tonight. I think Richmond Unite put on a great event. I learned a lot. There were a lot of questions that came up about benefit corporations and B Corp status and what exactly those are, and it's great to see more events like that, and I look forward to going to them.